So San Diego Comic-Con has just wrapped up, and looking at all the announcements and the news coming out from there, it really took me back to my very own Comic-Con experience back in 2024, where I got to screen my short film, The First Time I Never Met You, and even got my own Q&A panel. For those of you who don't know, that San Diego Comic-Con also has its own film festival, the Comic-Con International Independent Film Festival, CCI-IFF for short, which is where the film screened. So I was looking back at some of the footage from that weekend and I thought, why not share it with you guys? Also, just a heads up, I don't have the full Q&A as a continuous recording. I've just got a handful of clips with bits missing in between, so I will, where needed, fill in the gaps so that you can get the full context. So watching this back, it was really interesting to notice that a lot of the questions weren't about the filmmaking or the VFX, but more about the ideas and the experiences that inspired and shaped the story.
Be able to buy a house when I have children with this person, and then she's not with me anymore. Did I do all of these things for nothing? And I was tempted to just throw it all away and be like, oh, I'm not going to have it. So I was, that mindset. I thought about that and I sort of put it into the story where, the wife that the character's lost represents that person that I was planning a future with, and the daughter represents all of the things that, all of the good things that came as a result of that relationship that are still here, even though the relationship is not there.
The conversation also covered the mechanics of the story. One of the things that I wanted to be intentional about was how the time travel itself should work. Well, more importantly, how it should not work.
Have a sort of a closure to time travel. Whereas once you've changed it, you can't change it back because there's no alternate realities. It's like a tape. You re-record over the tape, but there's only one tape.
I was asked how the story might evolve beyond the short film. And looking back now, I think that was one of the most useful questions for me to have to answer. It forced me to confront the things that I knew were missing from the film or weren't quite right.
The revealing thing is when I watch it in front of a room of other people, I notice all the things that I wish I did better, and I'm wondering, is everyone noticing this? But all of these things are things where I'm like, okay, I should have done it like that, I should have added this scene in, I should have added this line to this. These are things that I can put into something that's a bit more fleshed out, like a feature or a TV series. There's one of the things I'm already thinking about is, and I don't know if you guys noticed it or not, but I always feel very self-conscious about this film because I wanted to play the character as someone that's very, not as socially adept and very awkward with interactions. This was the plan for me, but there is nothing in the story that explicitly shows this. So every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, I could have done with a scene where we see him interact in his day-to-day life, being socially awkward. And I'm like, well, that's a scene, that's an extra scene that's there for, the series or the feature. So there's room for me to flesh out certain scenes to make it longer. And hopefully next year, Comic-Con, I'll be here with, hey, this is the feature, this is the TV series, come and watch the first episode, yeah.
And it ended up massively affecting how I look at any new stories that I develop. I'm now much more deliberate about making sure that the relevant parts of the story end up on the screen and not just in my head, whether that's through the script, through the characters' relationships, or even through the setting.
How many days did you shoot?
It was a 3-day shoot. The shoot itself was a 3-day shoot. Pre-production was very long with loads of delays because we got the money for it in 2021. About a month after that, I went away. I was in Romania shooting on the Western series, and then I came back and we had to pick up pre-production. And so that pre-production was like little bits and pieces to get ready for those 3 days.
The conversation then moved to the unavoidable but very important topic of the budget. So a bit of context here. The money for this film was raised through crowdfunding. We reached 103% of our target, and after platform fees and other deductions, we raised about £14,400. I then also added some of my own money, but that was a little bit harder to account for because whilst some of my money was spent directly on making the film, some of it also was spent on running the limited company that I had set up to produce the film. But then you also have to account for other bits and pieces, film tax incentives, but overall the film was made for about £18,000. And by the way, if you want to know whether opening a limited company to produce your short film is the right move for you, I've made a video on the topic which I will link in the description below. But let's get back to Comic-Con.
Yeah, so it's not a crazy budget when you know what the budgets are like in the industry. But I was hearing of short films at the same time being made for budgets of like £40,000, which is about $50,000 from companies that make like loads of commercials and music videos, and they want to venture into narrative storytelling. So they got the money there to make their projects. I was like, I didn't have any of that, and I was hearing, I was like, oh wow, you guys have a lot of resources. But you know, we did what we could with what we were given.
And finally, we talked a little bit about post-production, more specifically sound. Sound is one of these things that audiences often don't consciously notice, but it can really make a difference to how the scene feels.
That's what happens, and also the sound sort of helps when you get these odd sounds that come in and out to sort of suggest that something's happening and support the idea. And it was more like sort of keying in those moments with the sound designer to really, punch in on, okay, this is what's happening, or this is what, we want the audience to think that is happening. And I thought he did amazing. He's a great guy.
It's really funny looking back at this panel after all these years. Well, first of all, it reminds me that I was extremely lucky to have my short film screened at Comic-Con, at the San Diego Comic-Con out of all Comic-Cons, and to have people attend and watch the film, and for them to be interested enough to want to ask questions about it. It's also a reminder of how much things can change in a couple years. Looking back, I can see which ideas I've held on to, which ones have evolved into something else, and which lessons I'm carrying into the next project. I'm also realizing that I probably was a little bit too busy worrying about whether the film worked to fully appreciate how amazing of an experience that was. So if I get lucky enough to make another film in the future, I will make sure to appreciate that part a lot more. Now, if you've seen the film already, are there any questions that you would have asked? If so, drop them in the comment section below. And if you've not seen it, I will leave a link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.